Lil Scrappy was supposed to be getting better. After days of cautious optimism, his family and fans finally believed the worst was over. But in a shocking twist, that fragile hope shattered when the doctors delivered devastating news. His latest test results were not just bad, they were far worse than anyone had anticipated. The shift was immediate and terrifying. One moment, there was relief in the air, soft smiles between nurses, gentle reassurances from doctors. The next, tension flooded the hospital room like a storm cloud. Machines began to beep faster, their steady rhythm turning into a warning siren. Whispers filled the room as medical staff exchanged uneasy glances, their calm professionalism cracking under the weight of uncertainty. Bambi froze in disbelief, her trembling hands clutching the phone she had just used to update loved ones about Scrappy's progress. Mama D stood near the door, her face pale, her usually unshakable confidence replaced by a look of helpless fear. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the sterile hum of machines and the faint murmur of prayers. It was as if time itself had paused inside that room. No one knew what had gone wrong, why Scrappy's body, which had shown signs of recovery, was now collapsing without warning. The doctors scrambled to piece together the sudden decline, but answers remained elusive. All anyone could do was watch, hope, and pray that this was just a temporary setback. Yet, deep down, everyone felt it. Something far more serious was unfolding, something that no one had prepared for. The air was thick with dread, the kind that seeps into every breath, every heartbeat. And as night fell over the hospital, the once bright room dimmed under the shadow of fear, setting the stage for the desperate hours to come. Inside the intensive care unit, the atmosphere was heavy and motionless, thick with the sterile scent of antiseptic and the quiet hum of machines that seemed to echo like ticking clocks, counting down each second of Lil Scrappy's fragile life. The once vibrant rapper, known for his fiery energy and confidence, now lay still beneath the harsh fluorescent lights, his chest rising and falling only slightly as the machines beside him worked tirelessly to keep him alive. Every beep from the monitor pierced through the tense silence, each sound a reminder of how close he hovered to the edge. Bambi sat beside his bed, her fingers wrapped tightly around his hand, her tears falling silently onto the crisp, white sheets. Her voice, hoarse from whispering prayers, broke with quiet pleas, begging him to fight, to come back, to keep his promise not to leave her. Her perfectly manicured nails were chipped, her hair disheveled, and her spirit drained from nights spent in sleepless fear. Across the room, Mama D stood like a statue of grief, her arms crossed over her chest as if holding herself together by sheer willpower. The strong, outspoken matriarch who had faced the world with unwavering pride now looked small beneath the weight of uncertainty. Every so often, she murmured under her breath, a soft prayer carried through trembling lips. "Lord, please don't take my boy." The nurses moved quietly, their footsteps muffled against the cold tile floor, adjusting IV lines and checking monitors, while the lead doctor's furrowed brow betrayed his growing concern. The room had become a battlefield, not one of noise and chaos, but of endurance and faith, where love, fear, and desperation collided in every breath. For Bambi and Mama D, every minute felt like a lifetime, every blink a risk that the next might not come. And as they stood there, clinging to hope, they both knew the fight was only beginning. The hardest hours still lay ahead. The quiet tension in the room deepened as the door creaked open and Dr. Mitchell stepped inside, his face drawn and eyes shadowed by fatigue. He had delivered bad news before, but this moment felt heavier, more personal. He paused for a breath, glancing at the monitors, then at the two women waiting for answers that would change everything. Bambi's eyes searched his face with desperate hope, her voice cracking as she asked, "What's going on? You said he was getting better." Dr. Mitchell ran a weary hand through his graying hair before speaking, his tone soft but firm, each word cutting through the silence like a blade. "Scrappy's latest test results just came in, and they're not good." For a moment, the words hung in the air, hollow and unreal. Bambi shook her head in disbelief, while Mama D gripped the edge of the hospital bed, her knuckles turning white. "His liver function has dropped sharply," the doctor continued. His kidneys are under severe strain, and his oxygen levels are falling again. We've been monitoring his heart, but it's showing signs of increasing stress. The color drained from Bambi's face. But yesterday you said he was stable. You said he was improving. Her voice trembled as the weight of the contradiction settled in. Dr. Mitchell exhaled slowly, his tone edged with regret. Sometimes the body gives us false signs of recovery. It can appear to stabilize right before complications hit hard. That's what's happening here. His system is fighting, but it's losing ground. The words struck like lightning, shattering the fragile calm. Mama D's lips quivered as she muttered, "No, not my baby. Not after everything he's survived." The doctor's eyes softened, but his expression stayed professional, composed by duty. "We're doing everything possible," he said, his voice low and steady. "But the situation is unpredictable. The next few hours will be critical." The rhythmic beeping of the machines filled the pause that followed, echoing the fear in everyone's chest. Bambi lowered her head, clutching Scrappy's hand tighter, as if her grip alone could pull him back from the edge. Mama D closed her eyes, whispering another prayer under her breath, while Dr. Mitchell stood silently beside them, the bearer of truth no one wanted to hear. And though no one said it aloud, everyone in that room felt it. The storm had only just begun. The tension in the room was suffocating as Dr. Mitchell hesitated before speaking again, the weight of his next words visible in the lines of his face. He took a deep breath, his voice steady but filled with reluctant gravity. "We're reaching a point where we may have to consider more drastic measures," he said, his gaze moving between Bambi and Mama D. "If his condition doesn't improve soon, we might have to perform emergency dialysis, possibly even look at a liver transplant. And if his heart continues to weaken, we may need to place him on life support." The words hit like a punch to the chest. Bambi's head snapped up, her tear-streaked face twisting in disbelief. No, you can't," she said, her voice breaking with raw panic. "Scrappy's a fighter. He doesn't need machines to live." "That's not him!" Her trembling hands clutched his arm, as if trying to shield him from the idea itself. Mama D's eyes filled with tears, but her voice rose with the fierce strength only a mother could muster. "My son has survived too much to give up now. We're not done fighting, doctor. You hear me? We are not giving up on him." Her words cracked under the weight of emotion, but her conviction didn't waver. Dr. Mitchell nodded solemnly, understanding the heartbreak behind their defiance. "We're doing everything possible," he said quietly. "But the next 24 hours are crucial. His body is fragile. We need to be prepared for anything." The room fell silent again, broken only by the rhythmic hum of the machines and the faint sound of Bambi's muffled sobs. Hope and fear hung in the air, colliding in painful uncertainty. Mama D reached for Bambi's shoulder, grounding her through shared grief, while Dr. Mitchell turned back toward the monitors, watching Scrappy's vitals flicker like a candle struggling against the wind. Outside, the world carried on, unaware that inside this small, sterile room, 3 lives were suspended in a moment that could change everything, the fragile border between holding on and letting go. As the hours dragged on and the soft glow of the monitors cast long shadows on the walls, the air inside the ICU grew heavy. Not just with worry, but with unspoken resentment that began to bubble to the surface. Exhaustion and fear were sharpening tempers, and even the quietest sigh seemed to spark tension. Bambi sat hunched over, still gripping Scrappy's hand, her mascara smudged from endless tears. Mama D stood near the window, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, staring out into the dark hospital courtyard as if searching for strength in the night. The silence between them was thick, until Mama D's voice, low and trembling, finally broke through. "If you had listened earlier, maybe he wouldn't be lying here like this," she said sharply, her tone cracking under the weight of grief. Bambi's head snapped up, eyes wide with disbelief. "What are you trying to say?" she asked, her voice trembling but edged with anger. "Don't you dare blame me for this. I've been here every second, fighting for him while you're standing there pointing fingers." The words hung like smoke in the air, bitter and painful. Mama D turned, her eyes glistening with tears. I'm not pointing fingers, baby girl. I'm just saying. He's been working himself to death, trying to hold everything together, and none of us stopped him. We should have seen it coming. The accusation, though softened by sorrow, cut deep. Bambi's shoulders slumped as guilt washed over her. You think I didn't see it? She whispered. You think I didn't beg him to slow down? But Scrappy, he doesn't listen. He never does. He wanted to be strong for everyone. For you, for me, for the fans. For a moment, the two women stared at each other. One a mother drowning in fear, the other a wife clinging to hope. Their pain was the same, only shaped by different kinds of love. Finally, Mama D sighed, the fire in her voice fading. We can't turn on each other now, she said softly. He needs us to be strong together. Bambi nodded through her tears, taking Mama D's hand, their fingers locking like a fragile truce. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful, but it was understanding. The calm between storms, forged from love, fear, and the desperate need to keep Scrappy's heartbeat steady through the longest night of their lives. As the night deepened, and the sterile hum of machines filled the room, both women found themselves lost in the haunting quiet, the kind that leaves too much space for memories to surface. Bambi's eyes lingered on Scrappy's still face, his once bright energy now dulled by pain, and she felt the weight of years pressing down on her chest. She remembered their first date, how he made her laugh so hard she cried, how his charm was disarming and his confidence magnetic. Back then, he was unstoppable, a man who carried the world's chaos on his shoulders with swagger and a grin. She smiled through her tears, recalling the way he used to freestyle in the kitchen just to make her dance, his voice loud, his laughter contagious. But now that same voice was silent, replaced by the cold rhythm of machines. Mama D, standing nearby, clutched her purse to her chest, her mind drifting even further back, to when Scrappy was just a boy running barefoot through their old neighborhood, scuffed knees and wild dreams, always rapping to anyone who would listen. He used to bang on pots for beats, she murmured, her voice cracking. Told me he was going to be famous one day, and I just laughed. But he meant it. Lord, he really meant it. Bambi looked up, tears streaking her cheeks, and whispered, He did it, Mama D. He made it. And he's still fighting because that's who he is. The older woman nodded, a small, sad smile tugging at her lips. For a brief moment, the tension between them faded, replaced by shared love for the man who connected their worlds. The past flickered vividly in both their minds. Award shows, family dinners, the birth of Scrappy's children, laughter echoing through hallways that once felt full of life. Now those moments felt like fragile dreams slipping through trembling fingers. He's always been a fighter, Mama D said softly, her eyes fixed on the monitor's flickering lines. But even fighters need someone to fight for them. Bambi tightened her grip on Scrappy's hand, nodding silently. The room grew still again, the memories lingering like ghosts of joy refusing to leave. And in that silence, love became their only language, a quiet prayer wrapped in memories of better days. Hours passed like lifetimes, each second marked by the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor that had become both torment and comfort. The world outside was beginning to lighten, a faint blush of dawn pressing against the hospital windows, when suddenly the steady tone of the machines shifted, soft but unmistakable. Bambi, half asleep in her chair, jerked upright, her heart pounding. She blinked, trying to make sense of the numbers on the monitor. The oxygen levels were rising slowly but surely. "Mama D!" she gasped, her voice trembling with disbelief. The older woman rushed over, eyes wide, her hands clutching the rail of the bed. "What's happening?" she asked, breathless. A nurse entered moments later, glancing at the screen with a flicker of surprise before breaking into a relieved smile. "He's stabilizing," she said softly. "His vitals are improving. This is a good sign." The words hit like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Bambi covered her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks as she whispered, "Thank you, God. Thank you." Mama D's knees buckled slightly as she exhaled the breath she didn't realize she'd been holding, her trembling hand reaching out to stroke her son's forehead. "That's my boy," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "I told y'all he's a fighter." The nurse adjusted Scrappy's IV, murmuring updates into her headset, while Bambi and Mama D stood frozen, afraid that any movement might shatter the fragile miracle unfolding before them. The once terrifying sound of the machines now played like a symphony of hope, a reminder that somewhere deep inside, Scrappy was still fighting, clawing his way back. Bambi leaned closer, pressing her forehead against his hand. "You hear me, baby? You're doing it. You're coming back to us." Her voice cracked, but her spirit surged with new life. Mama D whispered a prayer of gratitude, her tears falling freely now, not from despair, but from the sudden rush of hope she had almost forgotten how to feel. The first rays of morning sunlight streamed through the window, bathing the room in a soft golden glow. For the first time in days, the air didn't feel heavy, it felt alive. And in that fragile, luminous moment, hope, small, trembling, but real, began to bloom again. Just as hope began to take root, the weight of exhaustion and emotion that had been building for days finally broke through the fragile composure both women had been clinging to. Bambi, still holding Scrappy's hand, suddenly felt her chest tighten, the mix of relief and fear crashing through her like a wave. Her sobs came uncontrollably, raw and guttural, echoing through the sterile ICU room. "I can't do this anymore," she cried, her voice cracking under the force of her anguish. "I can't sit here watching him like this, not knowing if he's coming back or not." Mama D moved quickly to her side, her own eyes glassy with tears. "Baby, you gotta hold on," she said softly, her usual commanding tone replaced by trembling compassion. But Bambi shook her head, the storm of emotion too strong. "He promised me he'd never leave me," she whispered through clenched teeth. "We were supposed to grow old together, raise our kids, build everything we dreamed of. And now I'm just sitting here praying he breathes." Her words splintered into sobs again as she buried her face in her hands. Mama D wrapped her arms around her, pulling her close despite all the past tension, their shared grief melting any lingering walls between them. "I know, baby," she murmured, her voice trembling. "I know it hurts. But he's still here. That means we still got something to fight for." Tears streamed freely down her face as she spoke, the sight of her son lying motionless, twisting her insides in ways no mother should ever feel. The machines continued their quiet hum, filling the pauses between their sobs with a haunting rhythm. For the first time, Bambi allowed herself to lean fully into Mama D's embrace, her body shaking as the older woman held her tight, both clinging to each other for strength neither had left. Outside, the sky was turning a pale blue, signaling the arrival of morning, but inside that room time felt suspended, caught between despair and fragile faith. The emotional flood had finally broken the dam, but within that collapse something deeper stirred. Unity, raw and unfiltered. And as they wept beside Scrappy's bed, love, fierce, painful, and unwavering, became the only thing holding them together. The sun had fully risen now, spilling golden light across the cold hospital room. But even the morning warmth couldn't chase away the uncertainty that clung to every corner. Hours had passed since Scrappy's brief signs of improvement, and though his vitals remained stable, the doctors made it clear that the danger wasn't over. Bambi sat quietly by his bedside, her fingers tracing small circles on the back of his hand, her eyes swollen but resolute. The adrenaline of the night had faded, replaced by a heavy stillness, a space where fear and faith coexisted uneasily. Mama D stood near the window again, her gaze fixed on the horizon as if she could bargain with the dawn itself. "God brought him this far," she whispered almost to herself. "He ain't about to stop now." Her voice carried both conviction and pleading, a mother's faith fighting against the creeping dread that tried to break through. Bambi nodded weakly, her own voice trembling as she replied, "I keep praying, but every time I close my eyes, I see him slipping away." The confession cracked something in her. Tears welled again, but she blinked them back, unwilling to give in to despair. "You have to believe in something bigger than the pain," Mama D said, turning toward her. "Faith ain't about what you can see. It's about holding on when everything looks lost." Her words hung in the air, soft but powerful, echoing like a sermon born of heartbreak. The two women clasped hands, the silence between them now filled with unspoken prayer. In that fragile moment, even the faintest beep from the monitors felt sacred, each sound a reminder that Scrappy was still fighting, still somewhere between this world and the next. The nurse entered quietly, checking his chart, then offered a reassuring smile. "He's stable for now," she said before slipping out again. The door closed softly, leaving them in a hush that felt almost holy. Mama D bowed her head, whispering scripture under her breath, while Bambi rested her forehead against Scrappy's arm, murmuring a prayer of her own. They didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for now, faith was the only medicine they had left. By the time evening returned, the hospital felt quieter, less chaotic, but not at peace. The storm of panic had given way to a fragile calm, one held together by exhaustion and the faint thread of hope that still lingered. Scrappy's vitals had stabilized for the time being, his breathing steady under the gentle rhythm of the machines. Doctors had advised caution, reminding Bambi and Mama D that recovery, if it came, would be a long road filled with setbacks and uncertainty. Yet even in that warning, there was something precious, a chance. Bambi sat beside him, her body slumped with fatigue but her spirit slowly rekindling. She brushed his hair back from his forehead, whispering softly, "You did it, baby. You're still here, and we're not going anywhere." Her words were both a promise and a plea, laced with determination. Mama D, sitting across from her, nodded silently, her hands clasped together in prayer. The past 24 hours had stripped them both down to their rawest selves. No pride, no pretense, just two women bound by love for the same man. In the stillness, they began to talk, not about blame, not about pain, but about what came next. "When he wakes up," Mama D said quietly, "we're going to make sure he slows down. No more pushing himself to the edge. He's got too much to live for." Bambi smiled faintly through tired eyes. "Yeah," she replied. "We'll do it together this time." Outside, the world carried on, cars passing, city lights flickering. But inside that room, time moved differently, suspended between heartbreak and healing. A nurse stepped in briefly to check the monitors, offering a small, knowing smile before leaving them alone again. The air felt softer now, charged not with fear but with fragile resolve. Bambi leaned closer, kissing Scrappy's hand. "When you wake up," she whispered, "we're starting over." Her voice was steady this time, filled with quiet strength. Mama D stood, resting a gentle hand on her shoulder. "He's gonna come back," she said with conviction. And for the first time, Bambi believed her. The road ahead would be uncertain, filled with challenges, but in that moment, surrounded by love, prayer, and the faint hum of life, hope finally began to feel like something real. Real.